what you say.
Hello, my name is Michaela Struble, and welcome to the Struble Bubble. Today in our bubble, we will be discussing the fact that many American companies have begun to move their headquarters overseas, and why it is important we try to keep these American companies in America. The International President of United Steelworkers, Leo Gerard, explains in his article from Industry Week that throughout the first decade of this century, America has lost 56,190 factories due to companies leaving the U.S. Since 2000, there has been a decrease in over 5 million jobs just in manufacturing. When factories shut down and move, the people that have lost their jobs are not dispersed throughout the states, but are often clustered in certain states where manufacturing creates many jobs. Many states in the Midwest often rely on manufacturing jobs, one for example being Indiana, with 16.8% of its employment due to manufacturing. If manufacturing jobs keep leaving, it will not only affect the families of the workers being laid off, but it will also affect the communities that the workers live in. When we consider the amount of manufacturing companies that have left the United States, we also have to include all of the other large corporations that have left as well. David Allen in his article from the Daily Signal states that since 2012 alone, at least 22 major American companies have left the United States. Some of the major companies that have left since the beginning of the decade include the Michael Kors Company, stationed in New York, and in 2003 it moved to the British Virgin Islands. Another one is Endo International, moved from Pennsylvania to Ireland in 2014. Another year later, in 2015, Wright Medical Group, stationed in Tennessee, moved to the Netherlands. Alex Latch from his article points out that in 2000, when big brand name companies started moving overseas, the American employment rate decreased by 2.9 million, making the employment in other countries go up by 2.4 million. Even though the unemployment rate has officially gone down since the stock market crash in 2008, the employment isn't the same as it was. Because so many large corporations are moving out of America, the communities that are left behind have large groups of people who are unemployed in one community, which makes it hard to get a good job, leaving them with having to settle with a minimum wage job, which in the long run isn't good for communities when they try to grow. When companies leave the U.S., they are not only affecting the jobs of American people, but they are also affecting the economy in a major way. Due to manufacturing companies leaving the United States, the amount of exports have decreased while the amount of imports have increased, causing our national debt to other countries to increase. In 2014, the U.S. exported $1.5 trillion and imported $2.9 trillion worth of goods in international trade. These numbers resulted in a negative resolution in the United States international trade, adding a negative balance of about $750 billion to our national trade debt. In the past 10 years alone, we have added $6.3 trillion to our trade debt. The debt that has been collected from over 10 years just in trade shows that we need more companies to stay and help our country out of debt, and help our economy and country become as strong as it used to be. Having these companies stay in America helps keep money moving, creates more of a healthy economy. When our American companies leave, they take a lot of our American money with them. Some companies being worth as much as $500 billion have left, some even being worth over $3 billion. So why is it then that companies keep leaving? Well, it all has to do with money, money, money. Many companies that leave put up an excuse that they have to leave because they can't pay workers over the minimum wage because of financial slips. The truth of that is, if they have the money to move entire companies over to other countries, they can definitely afford to pay American workers over the minimum wage. Companies often pay their workers a fair wage, but when they move, they get to pay their workers a sum that is way under what they were paying American workers. Many reasons companies move is to avoid taxes. The government has tried to stop companies from leaving the U.S. by making shareholders pay capital gain taxes upon inversions over the past 2 decades. The problem with these policies is that the government has made it where inversions benefit some shareholders at the expense of others. When a company has a corporate inversion, it means that the company merges with a foreign company so they don't have to pay full taxes. Because of these policies, inversion has mainly affected older companies, while other investors like foreign and corporation insiders are benefiting. An example of this, quoted from the New York Times article by Glover and Levine, states that the investors who bought Pfizer 5 years ago have had their shares appreciated by 80%. Investors who have bought 25 years ago have seen their shares grow by 6 times. And when they have to pay capital gains taxes, it can start to add up to a lot, especially for the longer-time shareholders. During the time that shareholders have to pay the tax on inversion, the value of their shares have declined. Another statement from Glover and Levine's article states that taxable shareholders have lost 1 to 3% on values of their shares. These loss of values amount to $6 billion extra dollars in taxes for shareholders, making a corporate tax decrease. But corporate tax decrease is offset by about 40%. Meaning that when the corporate taxes get paid by the shareholders, the effect is not as great as it's made out to be, and in the long term, it does not even help to prevent the companies from leaving, it just makes it harder to. It has also been found that chief executives' wealth has increased by 3% to 4%, despite the personal tax consequences of inversion. Our policies to keep companies in the U.S. is not affecting them when they decide to leave, but in many cases it's making the chief executives more wealthy, giving them even a greater opportunity to move. Companies worth over $500 billion announced that they have intentions to invert since 2014. This goes to show that making shareholders pay corporate taxes is not the way to go. As Glover and Levine put it, they are having unintended consequences with no intended ones. The consequences aren't connected to the problem. If we don't stop companies from moving out of the U.S., it will affect the way our economy runs, and it will put many people at risk of losing their jobs and losing our strong economy. To avoid these risks, we have to start by getting rid of the current policies that the government has on companies. We also need to make it easier for businesses and companies to stay in the United States by lowering the tax that they have to pay. When we find a way to keep companies in America, it will help our economy become self-sustaining again and help our economy work the way our economy is supposed to work. Thank you for watching today's RSA. To find out more, go to the New York Times or The Economist and look up American companies moving away, or go to the links below in the description box.